Here's the mindful man reading another chapter. The chalk dust was falling on her hair and her bright orange blouse. She was about 50 with red cheeks and a big wide smile. She loved history and she loved to teach it. She asked the class what they knew about the First World War and a few hands shot up. She then proceeded to go through the whole period with amazing enthusiasm and speed. She spoke loudly and with passion, and she wrote on the wall like a dervish. Chalk dust was flying everywhere. Tom and James tried to concentrate, but all they could think of was exposing the head's evil crimes. James woke up when she touched upon poetry, and she read the poems aloud with fire, bringing the words to life as they crackled in the air like fireworks. He imagined himself in the trenches with the mud filling his boots and the rats scurrying by. This inspired him a bit, and the lesson took on a whole new meaning. He looked across at the girls who were concentrating fiercely, and as usual his head was filled with romance. He hated the futility of war, and to him life should be about fun, love and laughter, not orders, pain and death. Finally the lesson ended, and they all gathered in the canteen and discussed their future plans. It was agreed that the caretaker would keep an eye on the headmaster and build up the evidence, but it was still a mystery who they could take their evidence to, as there were no police and no courts. As they were pondering this scenario, the head walked into the canteen. He wore his usual smug smile on his face, and he was almost mobbed by the female teachers as if he was some kind of rock star. They were all over him, and he was loving the attention. He was brilliant at looking sincere, but inside he was like a stick of rock, with phony running all the way through it. Tom looked at him with undisguised contempt, while James kept his head down and drank his coffee. Inside he was bubbling with anger. The girls chatted amiably about nothing in particular and distanced themselves from the sly glances of the head. They were all pleased that they had got the caretaker involved, and he was hatching a plan on how to undo the head. He had seen the headmaster walking around the woods late at night, and he had wondered if he had been up to no good, which was very likely. He was determined to scout around and find some evidence. He had a trusty Jack Russell with a great nose for sniffing out trouble to help him. The next day they gathered in the canteen, and they were all excited as they could see change was in the air. The caretaker sat with them for 5 minutes, and he told them he was going to start looking round the woods with his trusty dog, and he was sure that he would find something. He whispered his plan to the group and set off. The dog followed him, barking happily and jumping around his feet in excitement. He marched through the woods confidently. He knew every inch of the grounds and prided himself on his knowledge of all the plants and wildlife. He was glad the head was in his study and that he couldn't see him. The ground was crisp and frosty and crunched under his feet delightfully. As he marched into the woods it slowly grew dimmer as the trees pulled a veil across the sun. While Jack, his dog and namesake, was busy chasing rabbits and snapping at butterflies, he walked around the lake, thankful of the hard ground. He was startled by a scream in the distance, and a crow flew overhead like a black portent, making him jump. I had been to the cottage many times and decided to have a look round. He was not quite out of the woods yet. Although a brave man, he was nervous, and so was his dog. Finally the sunshine poured into the woods, and he hurried out. He walked up the hill and approached the cottage. He saw the familiar red door and the wooden shutters hanging loose and creaking in the wind. He knew something bad had happened here, but he didn't know what. He decided to look around first, and he walked over to the well. It was dry and dusty, as he expected. There was a bucket swinging on the chain slowly and eerily. He looked down into the blackness, and he stared hard, and thought he could see a small light like a candle in a sea of black. Hope you like this chapter. Please sub me.